So guys, the installation is done, authorization is also done. We'll see how to configure the DHCP server now. So this is our requirement. All the DHCP clients should get the IP address from this range, from 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.0.254. This is the range. From this range, they should get the IP address, and they should get this subnet mask 255.0.0.0, and the default gateway should be 10.0.0.0.254. And guys, we should exclude these IP addresses 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.0.10 and 10.0.0.254. Why to exclude, and what is the meaning of this exclude? Let us try to understand. So imagine guys, in your network you have 10 servers, and so on. So on the servers, we should configure the static IP address. We should not configure the DHCP IP address on the servers. It is recommended, okay, highly recommended to configure the static IP address. Why? If you configure the IP addresses on the servers from DHCP server, it gets changed. So after sometimes clients won't be able to access the servers. There will be a problem in the network. So we should configure the IP addresses. It should not be changed. Okay, and we'll configure the static IP addresses. So let us say we have configured the static IP addresses like this 10.0.0.1 on one server, 10.0.0.2 on the other server, 10.0.0.3 on the third server, and so on. And we have configured the IP addresses from 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.0.10 on the 10 servers. So these IP addresses are already configured on our devices, and it should not be assigned to the other devices from DHCP server. That is why we are excluding. If you do not exclude these IP addresses, what will happen? These IP addresses are already assigned, and DHCP server will also assign the same IP address to the other clients, and there will be a network conflict. There will be IP conflict in the network. That is why we should exclude this IP address, and we should exclude 10.0.0.254 as well. Why? Because this is the gateway IP address. It is already configured on the router. So we should exclude the IP addresses which are already in use, which are already configured. Okay. And to configure the above requirement, we need to create a scope. So as we have already discussed, to configure the DHCP, we need to create the scope. So you will go to tools, server manager tools, then you open DHCP option. You will get this window. Okay, you need to expand it. And after expanding this server -01ms.com, you will get this IP version 4 option. You will right click here and you will select new scope option. We need to create the scope. Then you will get this window. You will click next and you will provide the name to this scope. So we'll provide the name as scope 1. Then we'll click next. And guys, what should be the range? Range is from 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.0.254 or 255. You need to provide the range here and the subnet mask 255.0.0.0, and this length is the slash value. In 255 we have 8 ones, so you will get the length 8 here. Then you will click next, and we need to provide the range of IP addresses to be excluded. So we have, as we have discussed, let us say we have configured the IP addresses on the servers from 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.0.10. Then you will add it. Then you will add it, and this range is added here. So here we have one option, subnet delay. So subnet delay, this is the amount of time in milliseconds that the DHCP server waits before sending DHCP offer. So it will wait for 0 seconds to send the DHCP offer message. You can increase or decrease the time as well. Then you will click next. And guys, here you will get the lease duration option. So these DHCP IP addresses, they are assigned on lease. They are not permanent, as we have discussed. They get changed. So they are assigned on lease. They are assigned for a particular period of time. By default, this lease duration is 8 days. After 8 days, the IP addresses gets changed. Okay, so we can increase or decrease the lease duration. Minimum is 1 minute, maximum is 999 days, 23 hours, 59 minutes. Okay, we can increase or decrease the lease period. Okay, guys, let us say we have given 8 days. So after the 50% of lease duration is completed, let us say 4 days are completed, the client will send the renewal request. So the computer will send the renewal request to DHCP server to keep the same IP address after 4 days, after completion of 50% of time. So this server will increase the time. Okay, server will renew the lease, and the client will retain the same IP address again for next 8 days. If the server is not available, let us say it has sent the renewal request, the client has sent the renewal request to server, but server is not available. Then client, what it will do, it will send the renewal request again when the lease duration is completed. 87.5% of lease duration is completed. Let us say it will send after 7 days. It has sent the renewal request after 4 days, but the server is not responding. Then it will send the renewal request after 7 days. Okay, after 7 days are completed. Again, if the server is available, the server will renew the release if it is available. If the server is not available at second time of renewal request, the client will not send the third request. It will wait for the lease to be expired, and the DORA process will take place again. Again, it will send the discover message, and the DORA process will take place again. So you will click next. Okay, so renewal, we will go with the default value 8 days, then we'll click next. And here we need to assign the gateway. Okay, so if you select yes, it will ask you for the gateway. If you select no, it will not ask you for the gateway. You will configure the gateway later. Okay, if you select yes, it will ask you for gateway, PDNS and ADNS. If you select no, it will not ask for any gateway, PDS and ADNS. We need to configure it later. Then we'll click next. We'll go with yes, and we'll click next. And here, as we have discussed, if you select the yes option, it will ask you for the gateway. So we need to provide the router IP address. Let us say our router IP address is 10.0.0.254. You need to check with the network engineer. He will provide you this IP address. And you will enter the IP address. Then you will click next. It is added. Then you will click next. And here you need to provide the preferred DNS IP address, which is 10.0.0.1. Then you will click next. And if you have ADNS, you will provide ADNS information. You will click add. Then you will click next. Okay, it will take some time to authenticate, to validate it. Then you can see 10.0.0.1 and 10.0.0.2 are added. Then we'll click next. And you will get this Wins server option. So this Wins stand for Windows Internet Name Service. Is a legacy computer name registration and resolution service. It is an old service. It was used, okay, to resolve the name like DNS. Okay, nowadays we don't use this DNS service. If it is available in your network, you will provide the IP address of Wins service. So we don't have any Win server. So what we will do, we will leave this blank and we'll click next. So if you do not already have Wins deployment on your network, do not deploy Wins related information. Okay, instead deploy the DNS. We'll click next, and we need to activate the scope as well. If you click yes, scope will be activated. If you click no, the scope will not be activated. We need to activate it later. So we'll click yes, next, then we will click finish. Okay, so here if you observe, if you go to scope, okay, it is giving this error mark. You will refresh it, it will be ready. You can see it is ready now. And if you go to scope 1 is created, and the range is, the network is 10.0.0.0. And if you go to, under this scope, if you go to address pool, you will get the pool from 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.0.255, and these are the excluded IP addresses 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.0.10. And here address leases means it will provide the IP address and it will have the information of that client here, like IP address and the MAC address of that client, which is having the IP address, which is provided by the DHCP server. So here in this case, this DHCP server has not provided any IP addresses yet, so it is empty here. And in reservation, we will see what is this reservation. We have a separate lab. Then router IP address, DNS server IP address, and this is the domain information in scope options. Okay, so then what we will do, we will go to client and we'll select this option. We'll go to the adapter and we'll select this option, obtain an IP address automatically. So this PC will get the IP address from DHCP server. From the network, we have specified in the DHCP server, in the DHCP node. And we have these commands, okay, to verify the IP addresses. ipconfig all, you will get the complete information with MAC address. And if you want to release the IP address, let us say your computer is having one IP address and you want to release that IP address. So you will use this command ipconfig/release. And you want to renew the IP address. So you will type this command ipconfig/new. It will renew the IP address. And let us say DHCP server has provided the IP address to client. It has provided 10.0.0.11. So it will have this information in this section, address leases section, and with MAC address. So in our case, we are going to use only one client. If you have hundreds of clients, you will get the list of IP addresses here with MAC addresses. So let us create the scope. We'll go to DHCP server. Okay, we'll go to DHCP. Then we'll expand this server. We'll go to IP version 4 and we'll create the scope here. We'll right click, new scope. We'll click next and we'll provide the name to this scope. Let us say it is scope 1. We'll click next and start IP address is 10.0.0.1, 10.0.0.254 or 255, anything. and the default subnet mask is 255.0.0.0. Then we'll click next, and we need to exclude the IP addresses here. So let us exclude the IP addresses from 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.0.10. Then we'll exclude 10.0.0.250. But let us say the default gateway IP address is 10.0.0.255. You will exclude it. So whatever the IP addresses which are in used in your network, you should exclude them. Then we'll click next. And the lease duration is 8 days. We'll click next. And yes, we want to configure this option now, which means we need to configure the gateway IP address, DNS IP address. Okay, so default gateway, which means what is the router IP address? 10.0.0.255. Then we'll add it. Then we'll click next. And here we are configuring we have configured the DHCP server on the domain controller, which is having the DNS. So it has taken the DNS IP address automatically. Let us click next. And Win server, we don't have any Win server. We'll click next. And we need to activate the scope. We'll click next, finish. Okay, it is giving the error here. Let us refresh it. Now it is working fine. So if you go to server option, you'll go to scope, you'll go to addresses, pool. So 10.0.0.1 start IP address, and 10.0.0.255 is your end IP address. And this is the excluded range, 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.0.10. This is the default subnet mask. Addresses leases, so IP addresses are not provided to any client, so you will not get the information here. Reservation, we will discuss it. Scope options, router IP address, DNS servers, domain name. Okay, now guys, we'll go to this client and we'll check whether it is getting the IP address or not. So it will not get the IP address. I will tell you the reason. So guys, what should be the first IP address? What should be the IP address of this client?
10.0.0.11.
Very good. Because 1 to 10 are excluded.
Excluded.
Let us verify. Let us select obtain an IP address automatically. We'll go to adapter, properties, and we'll select this option. Obtain an IP address automatically. Let us see whether it is getting the IP address from DHCP server or not. CMD. IP config. So guys, if you observe here, it is getting the IP address from 192.168.140.0 network. The IP address is 192.168.140.135. So this is the default DNS server in VMware. So this problem you will face it. So what is the solution? You will go to DHCP server. You will go to settings. Then you will go to network adapters. Then you will go to custom and you will select any switch here. Let us go with VM2 and you will select VM2 on client as well. Settings. Okay, it is the lab setting as, but in real time, you are not going to do anything. It will take the IP address automatically. VM2. If the reachability is there, it will take the IP address. Now guys, let us verify. Now what we will do, we will release the previous IP address, ipconfig/ release. Then we'll renew the IP address, ipconfig/renew. We'll wait for a few seconds. Now guys, what is the IP address?
10.0.0.10.
10.0.0.11. This is the first IP address from the pool. Okay, other IP addresses are reserved. And if you see the subnet mask and default gateway and DNS server, if you want to verify DNS server, you will type this command ipconfig/all. So you will get the DNS server information as well, 10.0.0.1. Okay. So this is how you will configure the DHCP server.